Hi, this is Rick Harsh. Let me get a little more light on me. I feel like I'm being interrogated by myself. Did you do it? Yes, I did. And interrogation is the name of the game here. We're talking about a crime, a book about a crime called Voices After Evelyn. And I want to focus on this book because I want to do a little something different. I'm going to make this a 4 or 5 part series on a book. This is, in my opinion, the best cover of all of our books. It was designed by Jason Snyder of Staten Island. First published by Maintenance Ends Press, a division of Ice Cube Press in Iowa, and we got our grubby hands on it at Crosse just well, I don't know, some time ago, not right away, but anyway, we made it into a pocket-sized book, and it's really look at that nice looking book. I'll read you one of the blurbs on the back. Look at that. About the cover again. I love the cover. Spine is a typical spine. But what you don't see here is the barcode. We stopped putting the barcodes on the cover. We realized we really don't have to, and it kind of ruins the artwork, the appearance of the book. I hate the barcodes. Anyway, so what we have on the back here are some blurbs. And here's my favorite one. This is by Seshu Foster, author of Atomic Aztecs, a Los Angeles writer, poet, novelist. And he wrote, "This wild murder ballad of a novel floats out of 1953 America on the voices of barflies, petty bandits, villains, miscreants, malcontents, reporters, a cop or two, high school kids, as well as one Peter Kreten, a German murderer only rhizomatically connected to the milieu. They all knew or knew of Evelyn Hartley, the 15-year-old babysitter kidnapped and vanished on October 24th, 1953. Rick Harsh's Voices After Evelyn is more than an astonishing act of ventriloquy, more than Miles Nagopaline meeting Roberto Bolaño in a small Wisconsin town on the Mississippi to rehash an infamous mystery. These voices murmur and groan, whisper and assent, limning an edge of the American nightmare refracted light on currents of deep water, a discordant and disturbing polyvocal night music from the heartland, the Midwest that Fitzgerald called that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic roll on under the night." I like that. It's a nice blurb. Is it accurate? Is any blurb? Well, anyway, that serves as an introduction, because part 1 is the scene of the crime. And by that, I don't mean the house that she was taken from, this Evelyn Hartley, in 1953, but La Crosse, Wisconsin, a town on the Mississippi River that has had its share, more than its share, of strange happenings and interesting coincidences, such as that Nicholas Ray lived there and Joseph Losey, 2 famous film directors, were both from La Crosse, Wisconsin. Also, Ed Gein lived in Wisconsin, and for a while even in La Crosse. Ed Gein is known as the model for Psycho, for the Norman Bates character. He dug up bodies, killed a few, but mostly he dug up bodies and made things out of the skin and so on. he dressed as his mother and did a lot of odd things. Um, he was still alive at a mental hospital when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. The mental hospital was there. So we even lived in the same town for a while, me and Ed. But there's more to La Crosse than that. Um, and I'll tell you, one of the really disturbing things is not just that it was in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most bars on one street. The thing is, it's a town, an old lumber town that is between the bluffs along the Mississippi River and the river itself, and so it's a very long town. So it's got its downtown. It's got two sort of downtowns, and the highways that go through the town along the river. There's a lot of places for bars, and it was a wild drinking town for much of its history, and it still is for college universities in Wisconsin. It's one of the major drinking universities, but that's not why I went there. I went there for the scenic beauty of the place. But because of this concentration of bars downtown, and that means every block is filled with bars, and it's been that way for a long, long time. But because of that, you have a lot of drinking and human beings mingling. And when that first became really disturbing to me was when, after living there for some time, there was a fight in a parking garage. 4 people from out of town were visiting, and 4 or 5 of them got into a fight with 4 or 5 locals, and one of them was killed. Fist fight, and a guy died. And that really struck me as strangely horrific. If you go into a La Crosse bar, nothing will strike you except maybe a fist. But no bars in the time I was there were scary to go into, but in any bar, a fight could break out because people fight. Once in a while, there's a drunken ruffian or something, and it's no big deal for words to be exchanged, punches to be thrown, and fights were like a normal thing. I never liked fighting, and I didn't do a lot of it. I was good at talking my way out of fights, but there were several times when I really had to talk my way out of a fight. You can't just say, "Hey, look, I'm a coward. Don't hurt me," because they might just hit you fewer times, But even a peaceable guy like me doesn't want to, look bad, and and there's a certain machismo and in just about everybody, and then there's quite often there's is this on? Oh, good. Quite often, there are women involved, and anyway, I remember one time having to talk my way out of a fight that this friend of my girlfriend got me into with a guy who would have crushed me, and I kind of manipulated him into helping me get her quieted down and into a car. It became it went from him against me to me and him against her, and as it should have, because I mean, he shouldn't have been physically violent, but she did do the yapping that got the whole thing going, and got me involved, as the only man that amongst the three of us, me and my girlfriend and her. And then I all this time passes, and suddenly a guy gets killed in a parking garage. That's La Crosse, Wisconsin. But when Evelyn Hartley died in 1953, the town was even wilder than it was when I was there, and but it was funnier. There were different bars. There was a bar that's in the novel, as it truly was. It was called the Cuckoo Club, and the Cuckoo Club had a few fun things about it. There was a grating, a part of the floor that had a metal grating, and when women in skirts or dresses walked over it, the bartender could hit something and air would blow up from the basement and their skirts would go flying. There was also a wooden dildo in the women's restroom, and whenever anyone grabbed it and moved it, an alarm would go off, and that shows up in the book as well. There was also a bar, I think it was called The Station. It was down near the river where there had been a train station in the past. And so this bar would deliver drinks on a toy train, an electric train. And I made use of that in the book as well. So this was there was the windmill, which had a windmill outside that didn't actually move, but the blinking lights, fancy lights made it look like it was a windmill. So this was La Crosse, Wisconsin, always a wild drinking town. And in Wisconsin, which has long been known for its strange crimes, Ed Gein being the primary example, but many others. Jeffrey Dahmer was from Wisconsin, and there were, in La Crosse, there were a lot of, how much time we got here? Okay, in La Crosse, there were a lot of strange murders as well. And one guy in a church claimed to be Isaiah, and I don't know what made him think Isaiah was, a pistol-packing biblical figure, but he shot several people in a church, and not Isaiah in the Bible, but this Isaiah in La Crosse. And most recently, there were a number of young men of the fraternity type found drowned in the Mississippi, and it was looking like it was one a year, and there was something else going on, urban myth kind of thing, or suburban myth, or I don't know, national myth. First I ever heard about it, I saw a documentary about the smiley face killers or killer. But it was somewhere on the East Coast. But it moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin. And it seemed that wherever the person killed disappeared or got separated from friends, the nearest spot in the river, there'd be a a smiley face carved into a tree or whatever, and or wherever they pulled him out of the water, there was a smiley face. I think the truth of it is, wherever you go in this world, for some reason, and I think it's sort of a satanic mockery, there's a smiley face everywhere. Life is a gas, and why not have a smiley face wherever you go? Anyway, the smiley face killer was blamed for 8 to 10 college students drowning in 8 to 10 years. It was something like one a year. I asked a friend of mine who was a newspaperman from La Crosse what he thought of it. He said, the number of people downtown drunk near the river, there will be clusters of drownings. People just step into the Mississippi and they drown. And that's what's going to happen, especially in the winter. And this just happened to be a streak of those things. So he put it down to statistical probability. And I think he's probably right. Although I did a spoken novel on the topic. But it was something that people really got involved in. I knew people who actually thought they had it figured out. I knew one guy who was so paranoid and perceptive that he knew who the killers actually were. I knew it was a man and a woman, and I knew the woman, and I didn't know the man, and neither did she, but he was convinced that those two together were the smiley face killer. She was getting revenge for having once been date raped, and he was just a hooligan. And that was his theory, and he was pretty sure that that's how it went. Well, this is La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it was all fun and games up until 1953, when a babysitter named Evelyn Hartley was kidnapped, and she disappeared. She was never found. The crime was never solved. Last I knew, every year they still published something in the newspaper on the anniversary. October 24th, 1953 was the date. And, it's an open case. And I wrote a novel about it. And in part 2, I will discuss the crime itself. And then part 3, I will talk about the book, the novel, the characters, and so on. If you'd like to know more, check out Leaf by Leaf by Chris Villa. He read this book and did a review. And I'll tell you more in part 3 why I really like his review, especially amongst other reviews that I got. So thank you, and see you in part 2, where we talk about the crime.